Welcome back. It's time for another Sportsnaut.com interview. Today, we're joined by the New York Daily News reporter who covers the New York Jets. Geez, what's going on with the Jets? Nothing much, right? Well, Antwan Staley joins us. And Antwan, obviously, the big injury to Aaron Rodgers, you're around everywhere talking about it with folks like us. What's the mood like now in the building? I mean, you have this incredibly deflating injury to your starting quarterback, your Hall of Fame quarterback who just came in 4 plays, but then you have this exciting come-from-behind win against an AFC East rival. Talk about what it's like being around the Jets today.
Yeah, I think right now obviously the players are sad. I mean, you had Aaron Rodgers, who a lot of people put their hopes and dreams in that this team could possibly contend for a Super Bowl, also a playoff appearance too. And the Jets hadn't made the playoffs since 2010, and 4 plays into his career with the Jets, and he goes down, tears his Achilles, out for the season. So I definitely think it wasn't like a somber locker room on Monday night after the game, obviously, because I think they had won. So it was kind of like a bundle of emotion, a lot of emotions there. But I also think in the back of their mind, they're saying, yeah, this is just such a tough break for them, considering, all the high expectations that this team was supposed to have heading into the season. The Jets were basically the media darlings throughout the course of the offseason. And for this to happen week 1, 4 plays in, it's deflating. It really let the air out of the balloon early in that game for the fans and also the players. If you could even see Robert Saleh's face on the sideline, that pretty much told the entire story.
Yes, especially with the price. Obviously, you make a trade, you give up capital to get that player. Of course, now they get their first-round draft pick back because he did not play 65% of the snaps. But you look at Aaron Rodgers. Let's talk about him first before we talk about the future of the Jets. Aaron Rodgers now with the torn Achilles. What's his rehab going to be like? And from people you talk to, I mean, it's a far way away, and you don't ever want to, I think, count anybody out. But at 39, going to be 40 years old, what's the rehab like, and what's the thought around whether or not Aaron Rodgers will be back next year as a quarterback for the Jets in the NFL?
Well, we asked Robert Saleh that on Tuesday, and he didn't necessarily want to give his take on it. He just said it's kind of left up to Aaron there. Basically, for what I understand, he'll have surgery in the next week or so there, and then he'll be on crutches for quite a few weeks there, and then from there, just starting to walk again, starting to do activities there after that, a few months there, and it's, for what I understand, it could be like 8 to 12 month type of recovery there. And then you're talking about a guy, like you said, who's 39, who will be 40 in December. And these injuries, as you know, it can really change the course of your career. We've seen it with a lot of different players. I know Aaron Rodgers isn't necessarily the most mobile guy at this point, but he is, somewhat mobile, or at least he was anyway prior to the injury, was able to lose his legs. You wonder, even with modern technology, I know it's so much different there, but, we've seen it with other guys around the league and quarterbacks there. I remember Dan Marino, it might have been 30 years ago, but still, he was never quite the same again once he suffered the injury. But I think Aaron's going to try to come back there. I don't think he wants to necessarily go out like this, especially considering how all the high expectations the Jets had this upcoming year. And, it's not like he's married. He doesn't have any kids there. He really loves football, especially considering, he said he was 90% retired prior to, going to his darkness retreat, but then decided he wanted to go play for the Jets. And I think that's what his plans are going to be for 2024.
Now the Jets have to turn to Zach Wilson as their starter. And we talk about Zach Wilson. We know the history and what happened last year. But how confident are you? I mean, of course, the public face is, hey, he's our guy. But what's the confidence level you feel from the organization that Zach Wilson, I mean, has he learned a lot with Aaron Rodgers there? Is he in a more mature spot than he was last year? How's the locker room feel like? What's your take on Zach Wilson as he steps into now a role with a team, like you said, who many expected to go deep into the playoffs this season?
Me personally, I think Zach has, he got humbled a little bit, a lot last year. And even, when Aaron came in, I mean, Zach got benched after a 10-3 loss against the Patriots, and lost his starting job. Mike White ended up being the starter until he ended up suffering quite a few injuries with his ribs and things of that nature too. And Zach became the starter again until he got benched again after during a loss against Jacksonville, and didn't play the rest of the season. So yeah, this year's been kind of about rehabbing him, getting his mechanics right, and then mentally, I just think that he was not in a place where I feel like especially when you don't take an accountability for your for a loss against the Patriots, in which you end up throwing 78 yards and no touchdowns in a game that was just offensive struggle for the Jets, to be quite honest with you. So yeah, I think the teammates externally are supporting Zach. They believe that he can at least help them possibly get to the playoffs. I think I don't think Super Bowl is in the cards anymore. I'm not sure they would have made the Super Bowl anyway, even with Aaron, considering some of the issues that they have, particularly on the offensive line, if you saw on Monday night. But I think now with Zach, I think they're going to be about what the team that they were last year. They won 7 games. I think they could possibly, 7 or 8 games, probably contend for a playoff spot, one of those last wild card spots. But it's going to be tough, especially in the AFC, where it's stacked there. You got the AFC North. I think the entire AFC North could make the playoffs, to be honest with you. And then you got Jacksonville waiting, Buffalo. Even though I know they lost, they're still going to be around. Miami looks really good, and then you got the AFC West, where you got the Chargers, Chiefs, obviously, and then I'm not sure what to make about the Raiders yet, but they did beat the Broncos, so we'll see where this all lies. But I think a lot of the teams in the AFC have a legit shot to make the playoffs.
Yeah, AFC is stacked. It's a tough conference to go through, no matter who you are, especially this year. Now you mentioned head coach Robert Saleh. You look at Robert Saleh, the pressure to win. They go out, they get the Rodgers, of course. He gets hurt. The expectations were sky high. What happens now is if the Jets can't do well in light of the injury to Rodgers, does he get a little bit of grace here, or is he still going to be under a lot of pressure to win, even with Zach Wilson behind center?
That's a good question. I don't necessarily know the answer to that, but I will say he's in his 3rd year, and considering what happened to them last year, where they were 7-4 at one point in time, and it looked like they were going to make the playoffs, and then they lose 6 straight to end the year, and now you're in a situation where you go get up a guy like Aaron Rodgers, who everybody thought, this is definitely going to be a playoff team, and tragedy struck. I don't know if Woody Johnson, the owner of the Jets, will give him some kind of, pass or mulligan in this case. Maybe he will. But people want to win. It's the New York metropolitan area. And last year, Brian Daboll, his first year, the Giants ended up making the playoffs. So that kind of stings at, I'm sure, Woody Johnson and the Jets organization. Year 1, Daboll comes in and gets the Giants not only to the playoffs, they end up winning a playoff game and getting to the divisional round before losing to the Eagles. So the Giants have always been looked at as the little brother. I think they're in a bad situation, obviously with Aaron going down. But I think at some point you got to start winning. Like, injuries are going to happen, to every single team throughout the course of the year. But you got to start stacking these wins up. Otherwise, I'm not saying they're going to fire Robert Saleh, but his seat is going to start getting warmed up, especially in this particular area.
So, what's your gut tell you, Antwan? Do you think with Zach Wilson, this team can still make it to the playoffs? Do you think this team goes out and gets another veteran quarterback to back him up in case things aren't working and they need to pull a trigger on somebody? What's your gut tell you?
I'll answer the second question before I answer the first. Like, Tim Boyle is the only quarterback on their roster. He's on their practice squad. For this week, he'll be elevated and be their backup quarterback there. So he'll back up Zach. I think ultimately they're going to have to go get another veteran, especially if you look at Zach Wilson's injury history. As a rookie, he got hurt, missed quite a few games there last year, suffered that injury in the preseason there, missed quite a bit of time too as well, 3 or 4 games. So yeah, you got to make sure you have some kind of veteran just in case something were to happen to Zach, because I don't know if Tim Boyle is necessarily get the vote of confidence that you want your team to have, especially if you're trying to make the playoffs. The second question, I don't think so. I don't think they're a playoff team. I think with Aaron, I thought they were probably about a 10 or 11 win team. I think he's good enough for 4 wins. And then you add in the fact that we talk about how tough the AFC is. They got a daunting schedule. Dallas, you got to face the Chiefs, Eagles. The Patriots are not necessarily going to be easy either. The Jets hadn't beat them since 2015. And then you look at down the line, you got games against the Chargers, the Raiders, the Bills again, 2 against the Dolphins, the Cleveland Browns, who put it on the Cincinnati Bengals over the weekend. And then you got to go to New England and Foxborough, the very last game of the season. And there's no telling what the weather could be up there for that. So it's a challenge. It's going to be a challenge to try to squeak out probably what you're going to need 10 wins to make the playoffs. I don't know if this team can do it. I really don't. I thought last year maybe they had an opportunity, but with Zach, it's just, unless he continues to improve and match the rate, then it's going to be very challenging for them to get into the postseason.
Well, we'll see how Gang Green nets out with this big challenge coming in week 1. Never a good time to have it, but obviously week 1, a tough time to do it. Antwan Staley, the New York Daily News, covers the Jets. Thanks for being with us here on the Sportsnaut.com interview.
Hey, thanks for having me, Scott.
There you have it, Antwan Staley. Thank you very much for joining us here on Sportsnaut.com. Tough road for the Jets. You go from that position with Aaron Rodgers, as Antwan said, maybe worth 4 wins. And now he thinks they're not a playoff team. So it's going to be a tough one. We'll see if they can overcome that major adversity. We'd like you to help us overcome something, and that is we'd like more subscribers on YouTube. So do us a favor, hit the like button below on the video here. Also comment, tell us what you thought about Antwan, tell us what you think about the Jets, the Aaron Rodgers situation, and we'll jump in there and talk to you. For Sportsnaut, I am Scott Gulbransen. We'll talk to you next time.